everybody, welcome back to Oyontikose avec Duni. It's me, Duni, and today we're going to be talking about the relationship between Black women and their daughters, featuring my beautiful cousin Cassie. Say hello.
Hi.
Hi. So we are going to be discussing a few different details between the beautiful but also very, very toxic relationship between Black women and their daughters. And we are going to get started now. But before we're starting, we are going to ask Cassie to tell us a little bit about herself.
Oh, you should have warned me I had to talk about myself. Hi everyone, I'm Cassie. I'm a doula, which means that I assist women during their most difficult times when they're trying to birth their baby, when they're trying to care for their baby, and they're trying to care for themselves during a vulnerable time of their lives. I also help women understand their bodies and what their bodies need from them. I help with holistic healing. And you can find me at Pita Pita Rose. So if you have any questions in terms of that, I don't post all day, every day, because I'm not a social media fanatic, but I am very real and I'm very much here. So if you need any assistance or questions, feel free to reach out.
How you feeling today?
I'm excited. I'm excited. Happy Women's Month.
Thank you. Thank you. So first, we are going to talk about the relationship. So to you, can you talk to me about when I say the topic of Black women and their daughters, what comes up?
So many different things. So I think that people forget that everything started with the Black woman. We're the root. We're the core. We're the blueprint. Okay, we're the potomita in Creole. We're what holds it up. So for me, when I think of Black women and their mothers, I think the beginning. I also think of a very tense and tough relationship, but a fruitful and sweet one at the same time. Those are just adjectives that I would use to describe it. But I also, there are positive and negative aspects to it, which we'll definitely get into.
Absolutely.
But those are like the core things that I would use to define it. What about you?
I think about looking in the mirror. Because I feel like a lot of like Black mothers, they see their daughters as like looking at a version of themselves that they want to protect and they want to save from making their own mistakes.
Ooh.
So I feel like it's kind of like holding up a mirror and like it's you versus your conscience type of thing. So when I think of like the relationship between literally the Black woman and her daughter, that's really what I think about.
You know what's funny? I agree with that. But when I think about, I'll take it back. When I think about, the struggles that Black people went through with slavery, with being separated, for a very long time, that relationship was severed. So the whole entire mirror aspect, definitely agree with that and see that. And I think that because of some of the things that they went through back in those times, with, the abuse, the toxicity, times 10,000 million.
Yes.
I think because that was so amplified, oftentimes Black mothers began to, what's the proper word I'm looking for? Kind of like resent their daughters too. There was an aspect of resentment
Absolutely.
there. Because some of the things that they went through, their daughters didn't have to go through, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like it's like resentment and jealousy kind of goes in hand?
Oh, absolutely.
Basically with that.
Oh, absolutely.
So recently I had a conversation with a friend of mine. She's Black, of course. And she was telling me how she actually thinks that her mother despises her. She's like, I actually think my mom hates me because I'm everything that she's not. So I shouldn't... That part. So she used to said that. I was just... A part of me was just taken back. A part of me was taken back because, like, I've heard stories about, like, how her mother treats her. And I can see why she feels like that. But at the same time, I think about, like, like, my own Black mother and how, like, the thing that she had to endure. So I'm thinking about, like, before, like, when another reason why I really wanted you to be here is because as a doula, we always talk about you don't want to give birth to children while you're still healing yourself. So I feel like a lot of Black women are giving birth to their pain, if that makes sense. So it's just like this, you're, and also as a Black woman, for a long time, we didn't have control over, not we, but like,
didn't, though.
Black women in general don't have control of their own life. So then now you have to give birth to this child who one reminds you of pain, who one reminds you of like opportunities that are going to be given to you, to that child that you didn't get yourself. And then on top of that, you're going to have you being human, you're gonna want to control that. And I
yeah.
feel like that's where the toxicity
You know what?
comes
Let's
in.
even take another step. Instead of controlling that, protecting that. Because when I think about a black mother, the first thing I think about is protection.
But protection can
Mhm.
also means
Limit.
control
Yeah, I can
and
agree with that.
limit. You know, there are certain limitations I feel like a lot of black mothers add on to their child.
You know what I think? So it's funny because I used to say the same thing, and I don't disagree with you. I do agree with you. But one thing that I learned over time, and it's so funny, I love social media like Twitter in that aspect because people tell their like opinions, and yeah, people will share their opinions. So one of the things that I learned and I didn't know is that back in the day during slavery, and I keep bringing it back to that, not because that was our beginning, but because it was such a traumatic point, and it's such a building point.
I think it's
Every Black history.
big point of our history.
Yeah,
as
it was
well.
such a turning point. We'll call it
Right.
that. That's why I keep bringing it back to that. But during slavery, oftentimes, a lot of Black people had to kind of minimize their children's accomplishments. So if your child was extremely smart, because you did not want your master, I'm going to put it like this, because you know we're the masters of ourselves, but your master, you didn't want the master to take note that your child was intelligent, so that they wouldn't do crazy things like sell your child for extra. Or you didn't want them to take note that your child was beautiful, you know? Because then your daughter may become just one of those birthers, you know?
Yeah.
You didn't want your child to be seen as, you know, extremely strong because then they would work them to the bone. You would do things to minimize, you know? And it was always with their confidence. So they would say things like, you think you a whole bunch of stuff and you're not. Or they would say things like, you think you're smart or you think you're cute. Just to kind of bring that confidence level down. And what they were really trying to do was protect that child. So that confidence level, because you know we're our best at our peak confidence level. Just bringing that confidence down a little bit so that way those who are paying attention don't notice. So that way they don't kind of end up selling them or separating them. So a lot of the toxicity that we experience comes from a form of protection to the core of it.
I absolutely agree. And when you talk about slavery, another thing that I think about is how these black women will birth these children, but then they will be ripped away from them. So there's this point where, like, as a black woman, you do not want to get too attached to this child, so that way they're not stripped away from you, because that's pain, that's heartbreak, you know.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, I'm like, I completely hear you.
You know what the crazy part about it is? Oftentimes we think about the heartbreak, but we don't think about the child's aspect. Daughter or son who's removed from a root or portomita.
Their portal.
Foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, to this world. So it's
Yeah.
just like, I think, honestly, as black people when we talk, we definitely have to always go back to slavery, go back to the
Before that,
effects,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying, of slavery. Because, like, yes, our story started before slavery. We were kings, we were queens in our own countries, but being taken away from our land, you know, like, and I always say to people, like, the land that you're born in have a lot of significance to your identity and who you are and how you carry yourself. And then not only that, like, for me personally, when I look at, you know, I have two moms. We both have two moms. So, like, when I look at my mother, my birth mother, I see, like, a portal. You know, I'm like, you are my portal to this world because you brought me here.
Oh, yeah.
So, looking at, like, this woman, you know, having to go through so much and then raising us, you know, and then if anything were to have her happen, she would definitely
be hurt,
she'd be heartbroken.
Yeah.
I would say.
Oh yeah.
So when you talk about like slavery and all of that, I'm thinking about today, where we're free, but we're not free at the same time. You know, because the black mothers still have to experience all these different traumas that. Not that I'm saying other races do not have. I'm not gonna take away from any other race.
I agree.
But
I see where you're going with
you know
it.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Living.
We still relive.
Yes.
And that's what I mean when I say we need to learn and focus on healing. I know some of it seems like kind of emotional healing, but it's not. It's generational.
Generational trauma.
Oh my God.
Generational curse.
Child.
Generational wound and pain.
Oh, I can tell you stories.
Okay.
Talk about it.
And I remember I was reading this article like not that long ago, and when you talk about, you know, doula, and I think we had this conversation too, how like before we were born, we also lived inside of our grandmother. So not only are we experiencing our mother's womb, but we're experiencing our grandmother, our great grandmother. So it's like this lineage of trauma that now as women, as people, we have to experience.
You know, that's why I say it's important to know not just your mother's story, your grandmother's story and your grandmother's grandmother's story. You want to go as far back as you can. And some of it that you'll not get, you'll get like bits and pieces of it,
Absolutely.
but that's better than nothing.
Absolutely. I completely.
And even if you don't get nothing, there are ways to get to the bottom of it all. So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So now I wanted to talk about how generational trauma affects the relationship between the Black woman and her daughter and her kids.
That's okay. That's a good conversation to have. Honestly, for me, I can tell you, my mother, she grew up in a nunnery. So from the age of, I believe, 8 or 10, she left home because she had an emergency eye situation. She grew up in a nunnery. So she was taken away from her mother, in a sense. Not from free will, but from free will. Because her mother knew that she couldn't care for her, for her medical situation, the way that the nuns did. So she gave my mom off, and my mom was without a mom for a while. And so for my mom, a lot of it was connecting with other older women that looked nothing like her. So what that brought about is my mom's kind of considered mulatto because she was very fair.
Yeah.
At the time, it had very long, Asians call it siwo,
Yes.
shiva siwo,
Siwo, yeah.
silky hair.
Yes.
And I have pictures of my mom from back in those days. Her hair was so long, big, beautiful, luscious. Kind of what you would consider an Indian woman, or a woman who had native blood. I don't want to say Indian.
Haitian.
They're
So you know. You know.
But ultimately, being disconnected from your root, it teaches you to kind of fend for yourself. So my mom is now super cautious. She's fearful of a lot of things. She's mindful. But it also brought about, certain ailments within our family. Like, my mom dealt with it. My grandmother dealt with it. I dealt with it. Fibroids. Which is major within the Black community. People don't talk about it,
Right.
It brought about, questions about love, relationships, how you know it's the right one when it's not the right one, It brought about learning how to care for yourself as a woman, because there are certain things that your mother doesn't tell you until you go through your puberty cycle,
Yeah.
It brought about so many, but I was blessed with a mom who was mindful of all those things and didn't mind learning from different women, from different cultural backgrounds. And when she met my dad, she fell in love and was like, forget this nunnery stuff.
You have babies.
And that came about
Okay.
a couple years later. But ultimately, when I think about generational curses, I think about, your mother really helps you kind of learn who you are. She helps you kind of navigate through life. So let's say we have a bestie or a friend unit, and let's say Abigail, our friend, she's being mean towards me. Sometimes I would go home and say, Mom, this is what Abigail did to me, and my mom would kind of help me navigate through that. Imagine not having that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So her learning how to navigate through those things herself, and then passing that on to me, where I had to kind of learn how to deal with conflict myself.
Right.
Or even within our Haitian culture, there is no children dealing with conflict.
Okay.
It's suck it up and move forward.
Okay.
Press forward.
Okay.
Or even as a Black woman, all Black women know this, the idea of there is no rest. We either keep pushing forward or we die in the background, or we fade in the background. We just have a term.
The strong Black woman.
Yeah, or the idea of there's no rest.
Okay.
We cannot take pause.
Okay.
That I think is a part of generational curses, PCOS, things that ail us currently. When it comes to our wounds, it's oftentimes emotions that we have not learned how to work through. It's situations that we have not learned how to properly heal from. Like even anxiety, stress, if we don't learn how to properly go through those things, and sometimes it's just literally learning how to sit through it and identify the emotion.
Yeah.
Black parents don't really tell you that. That's another form of generational trauma because they themselves cannot identify it. So how can I then teach you to identify something that you're going through? Even though I've gone through it.
I completely agree. And I feel like that's something that a lot of our mothers have suffered through is depression.
Oh,
major depression.
Yeah.
Major anxiety.
PP.
Okay.
PPD.
So, okay. So it's just when I think of generational curses within the Black woman, I think of the idea of, being this strong Black woman and what that means to be strong and to, having to take so many hits but also being so resilient. That's the word that I'm looking for. It's resilient.
You know what? I think I would take resilient and I would put it at the root of
generational curses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it is us brushing it all aside and just saying we gotta push forward and not addressing it.
It's like saying, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And you know me, I'm always good.
Okay. Okay, we're thinking about cash. I'm good. Don't worry, I'm good.
True. But you know the funny thing is because I learned to identify when I'm not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest portion of it. We don't learn how to identify our good. What is our good? What is your good? You know?
Are you asking me that?
Let's talk
I
about
thought you
it.
asking me that.
Let's talk about it. 'Cause I think that's a huge portion of it. Because for me, when I say I'm good, I'm happy, I'm healthy. And when I say happy, happiness for me is I define happy.
Mm-hmm.
So this pot cannot make me happy.
Right.
It comes from me.
Mm-hmm.
So if this pot leaves, I'm still gonna be happy regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's how I look at it. Even though I don't address the fact that okay, this pot left, I miss it. But at the end of the day, I'm still gonna find my happiness.
Exactly.
But again, I miss it. So that's a huge portion of it that I do not address. Does that make sense?
I think it does make a lot of sense. I also think that in the Black community, I'm not just speaking as a Haitian woman, but in the Black community in general, that emotions is something that we're not taught.
Oh yeah.
We don't talk about, and I feel like that also really affects the relationship between us and our mothers, because like like you talk about your mom being very fearful of certain things.
Oh yeah.
And you know my mom. So like okay.
That's my girl now.
Okay. I feel you. That's my girl too. But I feel like, so one thing for me is the idea of like this fear that is passed. Another part of generational curses is the fear that is passed down from generation to generation. Like my mother was afraid of this, so now she has passed this down to me, so now I'm afraid of this. But then for me, I'm like, the fear stops with me.
Yeah,
There's no way that I want to be afraid of this, so then like my daughter is afraid of it. So one thing that I feel like my mom's very afraid of, and she never really speaks about it, is like losing people, like death, which we know is very natural. And growing up, she would just be very like, you know my mom. She's very strong, very like,
yeah.
You know,
She always got a joke. That's
she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times, like even in serious situation when she jokes, it's like her form of dealing with certain things. Versus like, and you know, in the family they call me the emotional one. In our family, they will always
accuracy though. You can't be mad at that. But yeah.
But in our family, it's like, oh, Loon's the emotional one.
She's connected with her feelings.
Yes.
And
And at first, I used to feel like that was an insult because the way it was, the way
I
it
get
was
it.
said.
I get it.
But then the older I get, I'm just like, I'm actually happy that I am the emotional one, because I would come around and I would tell you, like, how do you feeling? You know, like,
I'm like, girl,
I'm good. But I feel like for example, as daughters, you know, like especially being like a Black daughter, you play a lot of different roles to your mother. You know what I'm saying? You play so many different roles. Like you have to be the daughter, the mother, the teacher, the friend, because one thing.
Therapist.
And I think a lot of times, even like when me and my mom would get into fights, I would call you and I'd be like, I'll be ready to go out.
You know what? I get it though.
You know?
I get it.
And you just be like, you have to be patient with her. And I think the biggest thing that you said to me was, you're teaching her something that no one taught her, type of thing, where like you have space to evaluate your emotions and sit with them. That space was never given to them, especially in the community that we were raised.
Oh yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is, because we're going to talk about this after, but I think the biggest thing between any relationship with mothers, daughters, is like, my mother's human.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the hardest things. One of the hardest things.
That's another route.
Is realizing, like, because we see our
Starting to
parents. Like, I used to see my mom, like, because
Superwoman.
Superwoman. She's a G. Because, like, my mom left Haiti when I was 3. And then, you know, she came here, did everything she had to do, and she brought all her kids here. That's gangster.
Yeah.
You know, we would wake up and, like, there would be no food. And then she'll come back, she'll be like, I'll be right back. She'll come back, she brought food, she brought clothes, everything. So, to me, growing up, that's Superwoman. So, because the way they deal with their emotions, like, nothing can ever tear them down. That is the idea you're giving to a child, like, this is Superwoman. So I never give her any space to feel. I never give her any space to fail. Because if she failed, it was like the end of the world. And I would take it out on her. I'm not gonna lie, I would take it out on her. And I think the same for me because she felt like I crossed an ocean to give you an opportunity and you're wasting this opportunity. So she also never gave me any space to feel.
That's big.
Or any space to fail at anything. Because she'd be like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, when I really think of she would say that too. But yes. Because when I really think about these things, like the fear, the heartbreaks, the traumas that they carry themselves, they don't have a chance to take it off. They're just continuing, and then now it's passed down to us and we don't realize this until we get to like our adulthood.
Yeah. So I will say this: when I was younger, I thought my mom was perfect. I thought my mom could do no wrong. I thought that woman was like, oh my God, I want to be just like her. She's such a great mother.
She's a Gito.
But you know what the funny
She's
thing
a
is?
Gito.
Sure is.
Okay.
So you don't have woman to play. But the funny thing is, as I get older, I start to recognize, like, you know, she'll ask me things like, what is your opinion? And I look at my mom like,
you asking me?
Wait, man. Me?
Wait.
I was kind of like, girl, my opinion matters. It counts.
Okay.
And my mom, one thing about my mom is she always said my opinion counted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even when we used to go to church all the time, and the pastor would tell you, you can't wear pants. My mom would wear pants. And she'd be like, I want you to tell me to my face that I cannot wear pants and praise the Lord. Like, that was my mom. She would say it, like,
oh, I know.
And the pastor's like, no, we'll figure what to do. You know, like,
yeah.
And I would look at my mom like, dang, girl,
she's
a gangster.
Our moms together. Both of our moms together.
Child, a hot mess express with a beautiful
tornado.
I was just about to say that. A beautiful one. But one thing I learned is that, like you said, we did not give them room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we also were not given room to grow. So for my mom, I know that me and my mom are opposites. But we're very similar. The way we attack a problem is literally like copy paste. But I am such a free spirit in comparison to my mom who grew up in a nunnery. And she's very like, by the book. If they say do not cross this line, she's like looking for the edge to ensure she does not cross it. And I'm like, okay, let's see how far the line goes. So she struggles with me in that regard. And it's so funny, but I agree with you. I fully agree with you. And I think that a lot of learning how to deal with our mothers is giving them that grace. Because they're also raising us. Well, they've raised us and they're still raising us. Because I don't think that, you know, you stop growing. You never stop growing.
I don't think a mother's job is ever done. No. Even in like the next life, I feel like they still like, my daughter, like what's going on? My mom already told me like she you know she gonna still watch out for me, and I'm like, I have your face.
Listen, I think you know, in all honesty, I think that Black women are so powerful. Black women are so limitless.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that it's a beautiful idea and thought and recognition to know that your mom will have your back. Death do you part.
To it.
And even through death.
Even in death.
Through the thickness of it all.
Yeah, the other day I was talking to her. I said, Mom, I know if I see like a yellow butterfly, I know it's you. I know what's up. I already know it's you. Because like, you know, I don't have my own face. We all look alike in my family. And I feel like with my mom, she just spit you out. She did. She spit me out. She did. So it's just like, okay, you know, like I understand. But you said something about like giving grace. But I feel like, can you talk a little bit more about like what does giving grace look like? Not just to your mother, but also to yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to look at the camera for this one.
Absolutely.
Because I think this is applicable to us all.
This is a message for you all.
So giving grace to, first off, ourselves. So one thing that I've learned is I grew up, I was a fiery child. That's the way I can describe it. To this day, I'm still...
I was.
To this day, I'm still very fiery. But one thing that I learned is, first off, being able to forgive yourself for when you've overstepped or misstep. Because we make mistakes. We make errors. We're normal. We're human. Second off, understanding. You know, I think with grace comes understanding. I think you can't really forgive yourself without understanding what you did and why you did what you did. So I think those two walk hand in hand. But when I say give grace, it's really about understanding the person is human to the core and will not always get it right. So it's funny because I have an aunt who always says that I will give you what I feel you give in return. And for me, when I translate that into like my relationships as a whole, I can't go and not give you that grace of forgiveness if I'm not willing to forgive you and I want to expect you to forgive me when I mess up. Because I'm human. I know that some days I'm going to say something and it's going to be like, ooh, why did she say this? Especially if anyone knows me. My mouth, flamethrower. Okay? We'll just tell the truth. But with me knowing that and being mindful, a little at times.
Sometimes. At times.
I'm still working on it. I'm still giving myself that grace. But again, being on top of yourself, being mindful, knowing who you are, you know? Let's say I'm in the midst of an argument with my mom. I'm just mindful of who I am and how I translate. And I think that's a part of grace as well. Because I know I translate very strongly. Even when I mean to be soft, sometimes I can come across as very, you know, strong, tough. But because I'm mindful of that, that's a part of giving grace. You know, saying, okay, maybe I did say that with a certain tinge of a tone, and I can accept that, and I can move forward. I'm not always going to be right. You know, I'm going to always recognize that, okay, maybe I could have done X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 differently. And instead of just looking at what they could have done, I think a lot of it is turning it internally. Not saying that you're completely wrong in the situation, but internally looking and saying, what could I have done? Because every relationship is a two-way street. It's a pathway. If you go left and I go right, we can't meet in the middle. But if you go right and I go left, we gonna meet at some point. Okay? And the goal is to meet at some point and to kind of take the rest of the road. I like to say one together because, you know, we Haitians.
Okay.
We don't do not found here together. We don't do anything together. It's one together. Because if it's together, it's two separate bodies moving together. But if it's one together, we are moving in one unit. Okay?
Okay.
So major point. So when I say grace, that's literally what I mean. You know, just the things that you would want translated to you in the most respectful, mindful, considerate way.
And nurturing.
Oh yeah, nurturing is another part. When I think about Black women and their children, their daughters, their sons, I think nurture. So that's a huge portion of being graceful and mindful, you know, within your relationship with your Black parent. I'm not even going to just say mother, even though it's International Women's Month. And I say international, even though it's just Women's Month. But I think, you know, I'm Haitian before I'm anything else. So
Okay.
And we're international.
I mean, I'm Black.
Hello, good
You know what I'm
morning.
saying?
So when I think that, I think, you know, grace is like one of the core values of it. Do you have any?
I definitely think that I think the same due to a lot of different like conversation me and you have had, and me and like other couple people I've had. But I think the biggest thing is, like you said, grace, but also understand like you're human, your mother's human. You know, like the same way, like, excuse my language, you fuck up.
Oh yeah.
They fuck up too, and I feel like at times, because they didn't have the space where they could be soft, they're much harder on themselves than we are, you know? And it just kind of gets passed down into a way. So I also think, we always talk about communication and how, like, you can say something but it's received another way.
Yeah.
But putting yourself in this, like, calm and very sweet, like, okay, Mom, I hear you. It doesn't always have to be, like, me versus you, but, like, okay, Mom, I hear you.
Us versus the problem.
You know, it's kind of like, okay, like, I hear you, but what can I do to make you feel better? And I think in the past couple of years, I've realized, like, a lot of transition, you know, like, especially the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, Mom, like, I hear you.
Well, that's
and that's to both mothers, too. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, Mom, Mom.
Welcome to the team, girl.
I know, like, two mothers, and they're very...
Oh my God, different.
They're very different, and they're very opposites.
Different.
So just, like, really understanding that, like, one mother was raised in Haiti, the other one was brought up here. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's two different perspective of different things. So then having to put those two together and then trying to understand like where they're coming from. Because sometimes I just want to be like, I just want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
But then other times it's like, you know, you have more experience. I understand what you're saying to me.
That's graceful.
You have to be, girl. You have to be. I also want to talk about right now our own relationship with our own mothers.
That's a good one. I'm here for that.
Tell me about your relationship with the beautiful.
So my mother.
I can tell you guys this. I love her mom.
Oh my God.
But she's who I call when I need defense.
She's that person in the family. That's crazy. Everyone says that.
She is.
So my mom and I are very similar.
Okay, Natty, this is for you.
She's gonna love this. So the funny thing is, my mom and I are different but so similar. We think similarly. We attack things differently. Well, similarly,
Of course.
but we also think and act differently at the same time. My mom and I, when I was younger, I want to say my teens to want to say mid-20s, we bumped heads a lot, and we still bump heads. But I think that now that I'm older, I take a step back, and I'm mindful of who I am.
Right.
And I think that's a big portion of having a relationship with anyone. If you can't know yourself, how can you
know anybody else?
Hello, good morning.
Okay. Hello.
So my thing with my mom is, over time, I've learned forgiveness. That's major. Because I've stepped on my mom's toes so many times. I've said things.
Looking at the camera.
Forgiveness.
Because I feel like a lot of people do not understand that. That's where everything.
That's the root.
That's the root of a lot of different issues. Forgiveness leads to healing.
Oh yeah.
But yes.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, recognition. No, you're doing good. It's like, it's fine. I think recognition and forgiveness. Because I know who I am. I know I'm a very strong energy. In a small body. And I
She's
know.
like 5'1", but had it to like 7'1", 6'1".
6'17". Yeah. But the funny thing is that my mom is the same exact way. When my mom is on go, when she's in defense mode,
Right.
it's like she's a much bigger person. I've watched my mom.
Oh yeah.
Fun story. We were going to DR to go into Haiti. It was cheaper at the time. And I was in the airport, and I was waiting for an outlet to be open. And this woman, who I assume is Dominican because of the way she spoke, her attitude, all of that.
Right.
She just had a certain air to her. And her child pulled their plug out of the outlet. So, open outlet, I go to use it. This woman got upset that I was using the outlet because she claimed that her child, her son mainly, was using it. And the woman tried to put her hands on me.
Oh.
So, just so y'all know, my mom is a twin. So I have two mothers. And they're identical twins. There is no difference aside from their gap. And I got blessed with my mom's twins gap.
Okay.
So that woman can't deny me either. So they were both traveling at the time. My mom speaks English, Creole, Spanish. My aunt speaks Creole, French, and English. When I tell you all the languages were sputtering that day, okay? Both women were like 10-10. And this poor woman was like, I did not expect this. They had to call security. It was a thing. Because my mom was like, you're not going to put your hands on my daughter. But that was one of the things that I kind of automatically flash back to when I think about my mom and how she has that fire and I have that fire. So when I think about our relationship, I recognize that we both have that within us, especially during our conflict. And because I recognize that, I'm mindful of that and I try to take a step back. So our relationship is so much better than what it was when I was in mid-20s, teenagers. Because I was rebellious during those ages. But now that I'm older, 31, going to be 32 in May.
No, you're not.
You know, I am.
I still be telling you when she's 25. I be like, my
I'm extra fine. But because I'm mindful of that and I know who I am, it pushed me to, consider her feelings and her emotions because that's what I would want her to do with me. And it's funny because now that I do that, it's almost like a mirror. Relationships are like mirrors. Because I give her that grace, she also sends it back to me. So there are times when we'll have conflict and she'll extend that to me. She'll say, I'm sorry, which, Asian parents never say sorry. It's a cultural thing. So to hear that, I look at her like, who are you, Or she'll say, you know what, I was wrong. That's another one. I'm like head spinning. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So now I can tell you that my mom is one of my best friends. During my battles with fibroids, she's been like a portomita, a core, She's always ready. She's like, I'll go with you to a doctor's appointment. And I'm like, Mom, I got it. I'm good,
Right.
But our relationship is much, much better. I think over time, you learn to navigate them. And then they grow and they become better, ultimately. What
Absolutely. I think, so, I'm still in my early 20s. So I think right now, me and my mother just kind of reached the point where we are understanding each other a bit more. Because, I was never really the rebellious child, but I had a mouth. And you know that.
I still have a mouth.
You know what I'm saying. I had a mouth. And you know that. You tell me not to do something, I'll be like, why? So it's just so I think in the beginning we had a very complicated relationship because I felt very like abandoned by her because of like just the way I was brought up and stuff. But then the older that I got, and then when I moved here with her, and just seeing like the hard work that she was putting in for us, like me and my brothers, I started to understand her and have like a lot more respect from her, like for her, because I didn't grow up with her.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to kind of get there, and as you know, like I have PCOS. So doing this whole battle of PCOS and being hospitalized.
She stands 10 toes down.
Okay.
She's a rider.
That is my rider. So like her waking up to make sure like before I go to work, like, oh, it's like come drink this tea.
Oh yeah.
And then doctor's appointments, just having her like follow up for me. She'd just be like, I'm gonna take you like, and like me, sometimes like when I go through my stuff, I be hiding, you can't find me. She'll come find me and she'll be like, and she always says, I know you're sensitive. I'm like, Mom. So it's just like,
it's funny, you two remind me of each other.
That's the thing. I used to think me and my mom were very, very different. But then the older I get, the more I speak, the more I'm realizing, like, we are very, very similar. Like, there's not really this big difference between us. I think she has a better job at hiding her emotion, where for me, I kind of just like...
She's learned it over time.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, here, this is how I feel, type of thing. But, like you said, like, that's my bestie. And I call her like 5 times a day.
That's right. I call my mom like a good 6 times.
I'm like, Mommy, this is just what happens.
Yeah.
So I think the older I get, the more like I really appreciate her for every role that she plays. Not just the mother, the caregiver, but the friend.
Oh
and
my God, yes.
If I'm dating somebody, I'll be calling her like, what do you think about this person? And she'll be like, what's this asshole? So it's just like now like at 25 and just taking a step back to realize everything that I've been through, and her always just being by my side, and she never once judged me for anything. She's always just like had this very safe and loving space to me. So that's something that I'm very, very thankful for, especially being Haitian.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
I was just gonna say it.
Especially being like a Haitian
girl. You lucked
girl.
out, girl. Because I know a lot of people whose mothers were just kind of like,
yes,
sissy, sissy.
No,
This, that, and the third.
I always say like, I'm richer than most, and I'm talking about money.
I know that's
like
right.
I'm so rich when it comes to just you guys, my mom, and not just like shout out to Paulette as well. I have to give her
pretty peak.
You know what I'm saying? So like both moms, like Jada and Paulette, like when we did and Paulette. So it's just like having them both by my side, like one to my left, one to my right, directing me and just really pouring into me. It's pretty amazing. I'm sorry guys, I'm just gonna throw this in the video. If you hear a sound in the background, it is we are at the studio and it is like a background noise. So if you can hear it, I do apologize, but this was the time. I'm just gonna be very transparent with y'all. This was the time that we could get in the studio.
So my Aunt Janice is like a third mom for me. I met her when I was like about 10, and since then she's been such a huge force in my life. I can't ever talk about my mothers and not include her, because honestly she's like a mother figure, but in a different aspect. She's actually American, African American, and it's so funny because oftentimes people say African American people don't have a culture. I hate that argument. I really do. I genuinely do, because there is genuinely a culture that maybe we do not know of, but when we sit there and think about AAVE, African American Vernacular, that is its own language. Let's talk about that. The food, the culture,
the music.
Oh my God, it's so similar to Haitian culture actually, because even down to when you go to church in the South, they used to wear the little
jupons.
Oh my God, yes,
everybody said it in English.
Oh my God, the underskirts.
Yes,
they used to do that. It's a Southern thing, Southern belles are very close into like culturally with Haitian culture.
Creole.
Yeah, Creole culture. So for me, I can honestly say, like, she always says, I'm finishing you off for marriage. Because she'll say things like, oh, you need to learn how to warm up grits. I didn't know how to warm up grits. For us, grits is mindless.
Of course.
And for us, we just put it in the microwave and we eat it. And when you warm up grits, it'd be hard. It don't be that great. But she taught me you gotta put a little water, a little milk, a little butter. You gotta stir it, warm it, re-stir it. It's a process. But I learned the proper process for it. So therefore, when I talk about my mothers, I have to really say I've been blessed with 3. Just to clarify. But I agree with you, because none of them are the same. And when I get my edges pulled,
it gets pulled in all different directions.
Yeah, but the wonderful thing about that is I feel more prepared for life because the more aspects you get, the more prepared you are to decide which route you're going to take. And it's funny because, we all have that internal voice in our head that'll tell us, girl, take a left or take a right, or you're doing too much. Calm it down, keep it cute, make it louder. And it's funny because I have those 3 voices.
Just going in different directions.
And they all will just literally randomly guide, and so it's a beautiful thing.
It is. I hope everybody gets like a second mama or a third one. I've been blessed with a bunch of amazing women, like you being one of them, molding me.
You're so sweet.
You
love me.
I do. I do have to, because you do play like
I'm crazy.
You do, but you do play like a bunch of different roles, like being the older cousin, the sister, the best friend, the teacher. Like having like breakdowns in the marriage.
Those breakdowns,
like, yes, and you just be like, "This is you." Are you done? Like, are you done?
So you pick it up now?
Yeah, but it's just like I do when thinking about like I don't just want to talk about the toxic side, but Black mothers are amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like they are truly, they're gifted.
When I think about, it's funny because as you say that, I'm thinking about this quote again that I read on Twitter. It was from this CEO. He was a Caucasian man. I'm gonna be culturally or politically correct right now. He was a Caucasian man. He said that some of the best workers he's had are Black women because Black women will work harder. They're very good at thinking about, I don't want to say scheming, but thinking about a plan A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z.
Fun fact, Paula always says that in life you should have a plan A through Z.
Hello.
She always says that.
And I'm sure you're
always have that.
Hello. And it's so funny because when you think about Black women and how we run business, it's similar to how we mother.
Of course.
Realistically, we're big communicators in different ways. Some of us, we don't say much with our mouth, but your face.
Get it done.
Girl, And some of us, we say so much verbally that our faces don't even need to speak for us. Pray our face don't say it if our mouth says it, So
I don't know if I'm doing it right, but...
But the funny thing is, we tend to be very well-mannered.
Absolutely.
There's a yes ma'am, no ma'am. We understand boundaries. We respect our elders, elders. We respect people,
Absolutely.
From young to old. We don't really think about an age group, that we respect more or less. We respect children as well as grown, ancient adults.
Like Trevor Noah said, if you want something to be done right, you get a Black woman to do it.
Hello, good morning.
No, it really does. And I mean that again, I was born in Haiti, but I grew up here, and I've met a lot of amazing women who molded me again. So I give them a lot of props, a lot of credit, and the mothering role that they play.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's just Black women, they're the shit. I always say that.
Oh, yeah.
When people are like, you only for Black women. Yes. No, I'm gonna say I will definitely say yes. I'm for all women.
Hello.
But
specifically
for Black women because we get the end of we get the end of the stick.
It's not even just that. When someone sees me, what is the first thing they're gonna see?
A Black woman.
Hello.
And then not only that, I remember Rihanna did this interview. She was like, "I'm a Black woman. I'm gonna give birth to a Black woman.
It don't matter if I lay with a white man. It's
I would
still
give
gonna be
birth
a
to
Black
woman." Because America doesn't see this part where my father's white, my mother's Black. They just want to see you as Black.
Yep.
So for me, we're gonna go into this. When we have kids, what are some of your goals and aspirations? I already told you I'm gonna keep you in check if you give my baby any shoes. But as a Black woman, I also like to think about I am my ancestors' wildest dream.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm living, not currently living because I know I still have a lot to learn, but I am definitely my ancestors' wildest dream. And I think my grandmother passed away very early on, and my mom had to deal with that. Every single time she looks at me, she's like, "You just remind me so much of my mom." And I feel at first I was like, "That's creepy," but then no, at first I was young. I was like, "That's a little creepy."
It didn't click. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the older I got, I'm like, "Okay, thank you, Mom." That makes me feel really good.
Yeah, that's a compliment. That's who birthed her.
Okay, so the older I get, I'm like, I really, 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 really really like hearing that. It was smile. Even like one of Paul would always say to me like, "You remind me so much of your grandmother," and I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, thank you. So like, as a black woman giving birth to a black woman, so
that is.
I said I hope.
You will when it's time. Trust me.
No, for you, not me. I'm ready.
For me,
Don't worry.
I'll receive it. You know, first I'm gonna get that ring first. But for me, when I think about birthing a black child, not just a son or a daughter, both, there are certain qualities that I want. When I think black, I think proud.
I think power.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But I think pride before that. Only because I think you have to have that certain viewpoint of yourself where you're like, oh yeah, I'm bomb. You can have power and not be like, you know, you not know how to use it. Not know how to wield that power.
Absolutely.
And I'm Haitian. You know, I come from the first Black Republic in 1804. Who fought and won when it came to our independence.
Or no life.
So that right there alone, I carry that within me and I carry that within my womb.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to protect that at all costs. And I want to translate that and transfer that to my children. And what that means to me is resiliency. It means confidence, competency. It means consistency. It means intelligence. It means consideration, compassion, empathy. Because you can be all those strong emotions, but it's not worth anything if you can't consider others, you know? It means understanding and knowing who you are and who you came from, as well as who you want to be. I think one thing my mom did right with me and my sister is that she taught us diversity and taught us that, you know, just because people don't look like us doesn't mean that they're less than us.
Absolutely.
But just because the world tells us that we're less than them doesn't make it the truth.
And doesn't mean that you should believe it either.
Exactly. I mean, it's so funny because Aunt Janice reinforced it. She used to make us read like these books on Black history, the ABCs of all the Black inventors.
Very.
Like, I didn't know a Black man created peanut butter. Okay. You know, but I learned that. Or the first cardiovascular. Okay. You know, I'm not even going to go into it because y'all know. But, you know, just, I want to translate that down to my children. And I want to translate love because when I think about love, I don't just think about, you know, pushing forth. You know, I think about that soft era. We talked about that the other day too.
Yeah, coming soon.
So what would you pass on to your kids?
So I'm gonna answer that in two different views, right?
Okay.
So for me, being a Black woman in America, I always talk about like I really want to give birth to a daughter versus like a son, which it sounds really bad, but because of the current state that America is in, and because of like the things that have been done to Black men in America, I personally don't think that I'm strong enough.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest.
I don't have Titiela inside of you. You know,
I agree, but I'm not her. I agree, but in a lot of different ways, I'm not her because, like, a lot of the things that I've seen happen to Black men in America, it's not like a fear. Like, I love Black men, I support Black men, but being a mother giving birth to this child, I just personally could not see myself give birth to this child, raise it, then it being taken away from me. So a lot of times when I think about children, I lean more towards having like a daughter. It's selfish, but it's honestly to save me from that pain. You know what I'm saying?
I think that Black women also deal with that too.
Yeah, but I feel like I watch a lot of Black mothers lose their son, and I feel like it's them losing a part of themselves that they never get back. If that makes sense.
Yes.
I've watched. Not that I'm saying that when you lose a daughter, you don't experience the same thing, but like. And I'm also not saying that Black women don't go through the same thing, because what police did to Black men, doctors did to Black women. But there's like, I myself as a woman, as a mother, I'm not a mother yet, but I know the way that I love. I couldn't imagine, not that I'm saying this would happen, but we live in this country where, you know, you do have to think like this, where like, I couldn't imagine giving birth to a son and then watching the police take him away because of his skin tone.
Yep.
Boule tête, coupe caille. Coupe tête, boule caille. I said that so wrong.
I was literally though.
You know what I'm saying?
I flipped it in my head. So I had
because I would really set a whole neighborhood on fire for that. You know? And
I understand.
I see like a lot of Black women being very forgiving.
That ain't me.
I'm not one of them. Respectfully, I'm really not. So it's just like when I think about giving birth, just to answer your question, you know, if I give birth to a son, I feel like the way I would raise my son would be a little bit different than the way that I raise my daughter. And I know you were gonna be like, well, interesting. So like, I feel like, my mom raised me to be very strong. You know, I have two older brothers on Julia's side, and then you know with Paulette I have Jackie and then Julie that I have to be there for. Like, I love them so much. But like on Julia's side, she raised me to be this very strong woman where I had to be tough. But she also made me the protector of my brothers, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And for a long time, I was just like, why do you do this? What are you talking about? And she would say to me, like, the older you get, you understand. And the older I've got, like, I've realized that I am that safe spot for my brothers to come to me to kind of, like, you know, talk to me and tell me what's up. So when it comes to my son, I would teach him how to be soft. The same thing I would do with my daughter, but the way that I would teach my daughter how to be soft and to stay in her feminine energy, I would want her to also stand very firm in her masculine energy, where she understands, like, I'm a force to be reckoned with, you cannot fuck with me. Not that I'm saying that my son would not be the same way, but like, in a world where, this is gonna sound really bad, where black men have to be this tough thing that you can't break down. If you look at the suicide rate in the African American community, black men they're going through, you know what I'm saying? So
a whole lot.
So much that they don't talk about. So I think the biggest thing for me is that my foundation will always be love, which you know. Will always be love. And I say love starting like I love me, I love you, I love us, I love myself, you know, all these different type of things. But I really would want my daughter to also play a role, like where my children feel like they have each other. Because that's the same way that I grew up with. My brother's feeling like, I got you, you got me. If something happened, like I remember when Jackie was in high school, he did something stupid. And he called me. He said, I need to talk to you right now. And he said, but you can't tell mom. I was like, okay. And he came over and we talked, you know what I'm saying? And being able to sit there and figure it out with him, that made me feel like, all right, like I'm doing my job as an older sister. But then I have two older brothers where like shit will pop off and you'd be like, see, I see who's about to roll. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, I want, and a lot of people might not accept this message, but like I really want my daughter to also play a role in the way that I raised her brother, because this brother is not only just going to be a brother to them, but it's going to be, you know, like your father is the first man you love, but and your brothers are the second man that you love. You know what I'm saying?
Trust me, I do.
So it's just like I would want my daughter to also play a role in that, because she will have a different perspective at that time of like what does being a black woman in America means, or being a black man in America means. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense to the point where, you know, you're having me think about my upbringing, and my aunt Janice has two kids, Cameron and Sonali. Cameron was raised on love and compassion and consideration, whereas most men don't have that softer side, that understanding of women. Cameron is that, as well as a man.
Right.
I would never take that away from him. He is legit a man. Sonali is a woman, very feminine, but also she knows how to stand up for herself when it comes time.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny because, you know, when I went through my journey with my fibroids and I had surgery, Cameron stuck by me and ensured that no one came into the room unless they were allowed to.
Okay.
That protective aspect.
Exactly.
And just being a sibling. So you're saying things to me that, you know, kind of remind me of certain aspects of how I was raised. But I've seen certain aspects of it, like, you know, teaching your son to be a little bit softer, especially when it comes to him, being a gentleman, you know, requesting consent before reaching out and, you know, touching someone. And these are things that I think are not within our Haitian culture.
I think not just the Haitian culture, but also like the African American culture in general.
Black culture.
Black culture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this, immigrant culture.
Yeah.
As well. So like, when people ask me like, and I think I've said this to multiple times, I don't want to give birth in America.
Yeah, you said that.
Multiple times I've expressed this. And when I say that to people, they look at me like, what? Like, you're crazy. And I'm thinking about like, this is a Haitian girl who was born in Haiti, brought here, seeing what the system have done to black men. So like, I know for a fact, I always say this, I'm going to have twins. This is something that me and you talked about. This is something that I've always said to you. I know I'm going to have twins, and most likely if I have twins, it's going to be a boy and a girl.
Okay.
So when I think about, like, the way I would want them to be raised, like, I will also, as I'm raising them, I would want them to tell me, like, Mom, you got to take it easy on this. Because there has to be a point where, like, we give children space to tell us as well, like, I don't know about this, Mom. You know, you may feel like you're doing the right thing. Not that I'm saying that they're going to run you. But
but they'll educate you on a new viewpoint.
Exactly. Because our times are changing. The way
Absolutely.
my mother's time is not the same, you know, way that my time is. And being an educator, working in the school system, being a teacher, I think my perspective in the past, like, year have changed. If you asked me this question a year ago, I would have been like, my answer would have been completely different. But I feel like in the time that I have spent in the school district, it would have been, my perspective definitely changed quite a few.
So do you feel like because you've had more contact with different ethnic groups and different children from different ethnic groups, I should say, do you think that has broadened your horizons? Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely, yeah. Because, like, for as long as I can remember, I have worked with, like, children. I've always worked with kids. But then now just being in a district where, like, I have to go to a classroom every day and I have to deal with
kids, so yeah.
No, yes, I'm always
you are one-on-one. So
you feel me? But then now going into these classrooms, working with different kids from different households, hearing their stories and being like a haven for them to talk to. Like, if they come up to me like, Miss F, I gotta talk to you. You know, like, giving them the opportunity to talk to me and then seeing how, like, their environment at home, like, goes from home to the classroom.
Oh, it translates.
It's different.
Yeah.
So when people ask me, like, are you gonna raise your daughter and your son the same way? In a way, yes. Like, both my daughter and my son are gonna know how to clean.
Yeah,
cook.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, those are
life lessons.
Yeah.
Things to survive.
But when it comes to, like, how, like, the gender roles, because people don't like to talk about that either. So when it comes to certain things, I want to do these kind of things very differently. Like, I want my son to also understand, like, as much as you can stay in your masculine energy, you can also be soft.
Yeah.
And I want my daughter to understand that as much as you can stay in your feminine energy, you can also be strong. You know what I'm saying? Like a force to be reckoned with.
I don't think you're going to struggle in terms of having a daughter that's a force to be reckoned with. Because I think that's in the bloodline.
All the women in our family are very G.
Yeah. Which, it's a beautiful thing. It is. But I think when it comes to having a son and him learning how to express, accept, and exude his feminine or softer side,
right?
I think that comes with things as simple as art, learning to identify your emotions.
Absolutely.
One thing that I vividly recall, and I'm going to use Cameron as an example. Cameron, thank you so much for being an example in my life. But I'm going to use him as an example. When he was little and he would get upset, he used to sing to himself. He would sing his feelings and his emotions.
I love that.
It was like literally being in like, it was like being in a musical, honestly. And he was like, now I'm upset because Cassie said something to me. And it's like, you know, and being young, I was like,
what are you doing?
That's weird.
Right.
But when you think about it now, that's the child learning that he's upset.
Right.
Why he's upset.
Right.
What made him upset. Like understanding that feeling, that emotion. And now that he's older, he doesn't blow up when he's upset because he understands this is what upset feels for me. So I think a lot of it, when it comes to raising young men and boys, is allowing them the space to identify, understand, feel. I think a lot of Black culture, I'm going to say Black because it crosses all spectrums. Spectrums. Girl, I said spectrums.
It's okay. It's okay.
All spectrums of Blackness. I think none of us stop and allow each other to say, I feel love right now. Or I feel anxious. Or I feel angry. Or I feel jealous. You know? And I think that that's a huge portion of understanding your softer side, which is your emotions, and connecting with that.
Absolutely.
So I do agree with you in terms of, you know, raising your children differently. First of all, because, you know, no two children are the same. When I think about, I wasn't raised directly with boys. It was me and my sister until I was about 10, 11. Then Cameron and Zanelli stepped into the place. And then my older cousins were like, you know, much older. So it wasn't like being raised with them, if that makes sense. But when you watch me and my sister are very different people. So my parents didn't even raise us the same.
Right.
So it makes sense
To
going through it and looking, okay, this is a son, this is a daughter. But what I would caution you on doing is saying, because they're a boy, I have to raise them this way. I would say go more so with their personality and how they ingest. I'm gonna say specifically ingest information. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes people think that boys don't understand emotions, so trying to push emotions into them from a young age. No, he understands.
Right.
It's you projecting that boys don't tend to understand emotions. You see where I'm going with it? Not saying that that's what you would do.
I completely agree. But another thing too, I want to add to that. There's a different culture that is being built at home versus like going to like school that they have to step in. Like at home, of course, they're always gonna have this place where they feel safe and welcome. But then like, I have this particular colleague that I work with. When it comes to the boys dealing with their emotions, he'll be like, boys will be boys. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, I would raise my kids.
Because no one says girls will be girls.
You know, like, exactly. So it's just like, I would raise my kids like a little differently based on what gender I have. But I know that for a fact that like, for my daughter, I want the best for her. And what I think is considered the best may not be the best, what she thinks is considered best. So I will allow her the grace that I think she needs. And I'm going to say I'm going to be her mom. But I know that, like, I'm young, I've made mistakes. We all you know what I'm saying? So, like, my biggest thing for me as a Black woman raising a Black daughter is, one, to empower her always to feel like she can achieve anything that she wants. Two, to make her feel like she is capable, she's loved, she's seen, and she's more than enough. And then I think the biggest thing also is to know her history. Like you said, understanding your mother, understanding your grandmother, and her great-grandmother. So all of that. So I think, like, those are the biggest things that I really want for my Black daughter. Because we're talking about Black women and their daughters. And another thing that I hope as well, and I know you're going to be there with me, is, like, before I have her, I want to heal from certain things that, you know, I don't want to project. Okay? Before I have her, I don't want to put on my traumas to her, like the fears of certain things that I have. I want her to be free. Truly free in her own way. And truly
limitless.
Yes. I don't want her to have to feel like she has any like limitations.
It's doable.
You know what I'm saying? So like when I think about raising my Black daughter, I'm thinking about raising a little loon, you know, a little queen, sassy, a little bossy. You know what I'm saying? But I want her to just always just be her own person. I never want her to feel like she has to be a certain way because mommy's like this. You know, like,
that's important.
Because for me growing up, like, I always felt like I had to please both mothers. Like, I had to please her.
It's so different, so how do you do that?
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, at times I felt like I was never enough at the same time for both moms. Because I feel like where I would, you know, make one mother proud, one mother would just So I always, like, welcome my kids to just be the best version of themselves and showing them, like, you're enough. So maybe, like, every single day, like, waking up, having affirmation, from jump, from sage, reminding them of the feminine energy that, you know, she has within her. And like, hopefully, if in the future my daughter is watching this video, I truly, truly hope she understands how much mommy really loves her. And how much I want her to just, you know.
I don't think that's going to be a worry.
Be happy.
I think just like you know your mother really truly loves you, your daughter will too. I think there's certain things that are generationally translated.
I hope so, because I know my mama loves me. Girl, I know she loves me.
My girl loves me, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to close out this video, because I know there are a lot of people having a lot of like a strange relationship with their moms. As a doula, as a woman, as, you know, being a daughter to different mothers.
The many hats, yeah.
Okay, the many hats you play. What would be an advice that you give?
Honestly, and this is probably gonna sound so like, duh. Of course you would say that. The relationship you have with yourself is the relationship you will have with your mother. That means if you don't love and care about yourself, virtually impossible to care about someone else, especially your mother, who birthed you, who you came from. I like to think about my mom as my first home.
Your portal.
Yeah, something about.
I always say that my mom's my portal.
Like, it's funny because after my my second surgery, I got into bed with her, and that just her smell felt like comfort. That's like your first home.
Yeah.
So when you think about your first, like purchasing your first home out of your own blood, sweat, tears, you know, starving for your house, like literally purchasing a house cash. When you think about that, there's a certain level of respect you have for that. There's a certain level of care you have for that. There's a certain level of maintenance, consistency, risk. Like it's just so many components. So like looking at her in that aspect.
Right.
Of course, like I said earlier, forgiveness, grace, consideration. But honestly, everything you would want, look at it as a mirror. Like I said, relationships are really a mirror. If I act like this, and you acted like this towards me, I'm gonna respond like that.
Right.
So I should expect for you to respond like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
No one's like, I always try to say this, and this is gonna sound kind of like probably politically incorrect, but no one is crazy. People can be unstable.
Agree with you though.
People can be unstable. People can be sick, but no one's crazy. Meaning things don't just come out of nowhere.
I agree.
So respecting that, understanding that, and doing better from that is a major portion. But in all sincerity, like the number one out of all of it is putting forth that effort. It wasn't until I took time to learn my mother and to learn my father and to learn my siblings. And it wasn't until I took time to just learn them, not just who they are, but what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them sad.
Their triggers.
Triggers, how I can be there for them, how I can support them in their journeys. Because, you know, we're having our journey.
Absolutely.
But we also have to respect the fact that they're going through theirs as well.
Okay.
And they're human.
Your parents are human.
Oh my goodness.
Your mother's human.
So all of those components together allows you to kind of take a step back and just be like, okay, you're tripping right now, but there's a reason why. And I can't just say it's you don't like me, because that would be childish. That's immature.
Absolutely.
But it's possible that I did something, and if I did, I'm sorry. And being willing to like put your pride aside, major key. Like JJ Khaled said, major key. But yeah, that's what I would say in order to like improve any relationship, whether it be your mother, your father. And I know we're talking about women mainly,
Right.
but I want to put this down as relationships as a whole, even with yourself, because I think when we talk about healing, the first step is yourself.
Absolutely. Coming soon. I know I keep saying coming soon, but it's because there's other videos.
Listen, I won't expound on it, but you know what I'm saying. So that's how I would say to improve your relationship with your mother. That's it.
I completely agree. And I just like to end on this note by saying as well, like, the relationship you have with your mother, with your parents in general, dictates the relationship you have with other people.
Yes.
So if your relationship with your mom is not the best, I personally recommend you to one, fix it.
Yes.
Or try to fix it, because I'm not saying everything is fixable,
Yeah.
but at least make a step, because
Effort.
you know what I'm saying? Life is short. You never know what's going to happen. So number one. Number two, I feel like a lot of people just be like, well, I don't care about this. Yeah, you do.
You care.
You care.
Because you're mad.
You know what I'm saying? You care. So
long as you can evoke an emotion out of it, you care.
You care. So I'll say to everybody like who's probably watching, Black mothers, before you do anything, hear yourself. Take a step back and really look at yourself in the mirror. I always say when you look in the mirror,
that's a conversation.
It is. When you look in the mirror, it's you versus yourself. It's you versus your conscience. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the biggest thing I'll say, one, to Black mothers, of course we love you. We appreciate you. And we understand that you're human. We understand that you have your own traumas. We understand that you love us. But sometimes that love can be translated into something else, number one. Number two, to all the Black daughters, I feel like a lot of times we think it's a competition between us and our mothers. But really, I see as like this one has many years ahead of you. So there's something that she's saying that has to click. You know what I'm saying? So I'll say that. And I'll say, you're human. Your parents are human. No one is like super.
Nope.
Allow, like you said, the grace, the forgiveness, the conversation to happen. And allow love.
Oh, yeah.
I always say that. Allow love.
I didn't even say that, but like that's kind of the core of it. Yeah.
Allow love. And I feel like in any moments that you're going through with like your mom, like we can talk about my relationship with my mom another time, but it's taken us a while to get to where we are.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a lot of arguing. It was like, you know, I remember one time I didn't speak to one mom for like a month.
Oh, wow. I went 3 months.
Trust me, I understand.
I
went like a month. And I remember Polly calling me.
It was hard.
It was really hard.
You would love to have family members call you.
No, because you know I talk to both moms. I'll hang up the phone with one mom and pick up the phone with the other mom. And I remember Polly called me and she was just like, I think she called your mom. And I was like, I'm talking to her. She's like, don't be petty. She's like, don't be petty. But then, like, you know, just sometimes you need the space.
Yeah.
But then, like, always come back together. Yeah. And just really talk to your
Reconciliation.
Yeah, you need to talk to your mom because if you want to be a mom as well, guys, I do recommend you have a relationship with your mom. So,
yeah. So you said it perfectly. I think in order to be a mother, and I understand not every mother is the same, not every relationship is the same, but doing your best to be that, just walking in that, major important.
Ooh, the last thing I had to add, there's a difference between being a mother and a birth giver.
Ooh.
That's something that we could talk about another time. But there's definitely a big difference between a mother and a birth giver.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I like to put it like this: a mother, a provider, and a birth giver.
Oh yeah.
There's a big, big, big difference. So that's what I like to add.
I think you did it perfectly. Thank you for having me.
I said thank you for coming on, guys. I'm really happy I got to come back with my cousin, my best friend, my shawty, my writer. I want to thank you guys for sticking around, for staying tuned and listening to this podcast. Of course, there will be a lot more videos coming in, but I just want to say thank you, and I want to add thank you to my cousin so much. And if you have any final words.
No, thank you for having me. I really do. This was big for me because you know how I am about sharing on social media.
Absolutely.
You know how I am about sharing. So I appreciate the nudge.
Of course. We're going to be doing this a lot more. But thank you guys. And again, to our mothers, we are thankful. We love you guys. We are so blessed. You guys are our portals, our life, our potomitans, our strength, our bones. We do appreciate you guys. It's just sometimes you have to take a step back to really look in the mirror and to ask yourself, like,
but you know what? We can't be unfair. We gotta say that to the daughters too. It's both sides.
On both sides,
Seesaw.
absolutely. On both sides. But I'm honestly really tired of hearing like, the black mother and the black daughter relationship is so toxic. There are good and there are bad. I think it's just finding a balance between them all.
I agree.
So I want to say thank you, and we'll see you next time on Yotiko Ziada Duni.
Bye.